Welcome back to Consumer Choice Radio, coming to you on Sauga 960 in the Peel region of Ontario and on the Big Talker 106.7 in Wilmington, North Carolina. It is with great pleasure that I get to solo interview one of our guests for this week. He's the president of Village Brewery in Calgary, Alberta. Welcome to the show, Jeff Popiel.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. So the pandemic, has impacted all industries. I think that's pretty much safe to say. But can you give our listeners a look behind the curtain as to what it's meant for the brewing industry?
Sure. The pandemic has been devastating to all business. One of the hardest hits is the hospitality business. Certainly, most breweries, 50% or more of their business is done by the hospitality industry. So, when your customer base is completely eliminated, that has a big impact on your business, not only in the short term where it's a disruption of business, but oh my goodness, the wake of destruction that's been left behind, where we've actually seen and heard reports of up to 25% of the business space is closed down and or paused indefinitely. Shortages of labor, etc. All this affects your revenue base and your outlooks, your forecasting for the future, your the number of people you employ, etc. It's added a massive amount of complexity to our business, and of course, these are our business partners, where really we work very closely with our customers. It's had a really big effect on the brewing industry.
And in terms of labor, beyond obvious, it's one of those things that I think a lot of people forget is the volume of beer that is consumed outside of the home, right? If they think big brewers, or any brewer, they think, okay, a case of beer, put it in the fridge. But there's so much to it that's enjoyed at a bar, at a baseball game, at a hockey game. Like, there's a whole another layer that I think people sometimes forget. And it's a very important point, because obviously the hospitality industry is, scrambling to try and recover as best they can, given the circumstances. On the brewing side for you guys, has there been any labor disruption because of this, or have you guys been able to weather the storm? And I ask that because I know some other industries and businesses where you require people to be in person. You can't brew beer remotely. So I can only assume, but I'd love to know if that's had an impact on your day-to-day operations.
It has, for sure, in many ways. So you're right. You need brewers and production staff, packaging staff, to be there to actually manufacture the beer. There's the office admin, folks in sales and marketing who, we can work from home. I think all businesses have done a degree of pause or disruption or downsizing through, just based on your business, whatever worked best for you. But for us, it's been difficult from a couple standpoints. Some of the labor that we have in our brewery, like on our packaging line, etc., it's hard to estimate what business is going to come and what you need them for. So even the complexity that the pandemic has added in there has caused disruption from, if we can't guarantee work, perhaps some of those people would go and find work elsewhere. So all the way down to supply chain, where this has been something that all businesses have had to deal with. The effect of it will creep into our business in other ways. Labor shortages, where a bar or restaurant who has that delay staff off, or now can't find good staff to open up, or is working with just the uncertainty of restrictions causing fewer people to come into their bar and restaurant. All of it has an effect on our business.
Absolutely. It's, I can only imagine the difficulty of trying to, if you're talking about production, when do you make the call to increase production and on what indicators? It's like, are the bars open? Yes, no, kind of limited capacity. Could they shut down again? There's just a lot of uncertainty there. I don't envy your position. I do want to chat about something that really grinds my gears. I recently wrote about this because I didn't even know it existed. And I know that you guys, beyond brewing traditional beer, you also brew non-alcoholic beer. I didn't know until just a few weeks ago that there is an excise tax on non-alcoholic beer. And as a brewer of non-alcoholic beer, why does an excise tax exist?
Well, it's almost hard to believe. I mean, it is a product that is not a controlled substance. It's sold in grocery stores. Minors can consume it, but yet we're taxed on this particular product as if it were an alcohol. And I don't really know the history of how this came to be. I think it was probably just a very small business base, and because breweries and alcohol companies were the genesis and the innovators in the non-alcoholic realm. I think it's just sort of been something that's been around for a while. But now that non-alcoholic beverage in general is a category that's growing just immensely fast, just absolutely incredibly. It's starting to take more public notice, and it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense that even in its most simple terms, it's an incongruent policy. This is a product that can be sold anywhere and served to anybody, but yet it's taxed as if it isn't. Doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
and it's so strange because when I did some digging into this, I found out that non-alcoholic wine is not subject to an excise tax. So it's just a strange disparity where, for some reason that I have yet to find someone who can either explain why or justify why it exists. But you talked about the market growing, and that's an interesting one for me because I have tried some non-alcoholic beers in my research, we'll call it, and I was pleasantly surprised. Some of them were actually quite good, and I immediately was like, oh, I could see why someone would want to have the enjoyment of socializing with your buddies at a bar or at home, but not necessarily having the weight of the alcohol also come with it. And so, who is driving some of this growth?
Well, it's a super exciting category. You are right. It's growing fast. In general, it's about plus 26%, but it's the craft beer segment of non-alc that's driving about 25% of that growth. It's a consumer base that's young, who's health conscious. So it's in that 19 to 34 year olds. Definitely sort of 25 to 50-year-olds are still a big part of the base, but that younger consumer, we believe, is choosing non-alc for specific reasons. Taste is one of them. The quality of non-alcoholic beverages, particularly craft non-alcoholic beer, has gone up and changed the game, where people are trying it and then staying on it. There's a socialization aspect to it where people want to make healthy choices or healthier choices, but they don't want to feel like they're not part of that socialization group. There's a regulation component to it, which is really interesting. So people want to control the alcohol blood levels, blood alcohol levels, excuse me. And so perhaps they'll drink one alcohol beer and one non-alcoholic beer. And, it's also great for entertaining. It is a segment of beverage category that can appeal to a broad amount of people. They're low calorie, they're low sugar, typically low alcohol. It's an easy thing to buy for a group that you're entertaining. So, really a different, the mechanics of why I think this category is growing is very different than I think has been there in the past, which I think has been largely around, well, if you can't drink or don't choose to drink, that you're kind of on a one brand non-alcoholic beer category.
Yeah, not to name brands, but we'll do it. I surely, I think it was O'Doul's was always the beer in the grocery store that you would see as a little kid, and you'd be like, "Wait a second, is that beer?" And my mom, "No, that's not. Well, it is beer, but it's not quite beer."
That's
Um,
right. That's exactly it.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so on that excise tax front, in any of your conversations, has anyone attempted to justify it? And I ask this because I guess it was 2 episodes ago on this program, I brought it up to Member of Parliament Nathaniel Erskine Smith, and he had no idea. And he immediately said, "Well, that's ridiculous. We should get rid of that." And that seems to be the common response whenever I talk to people about this. But I'm curious if you've encountered anyone who has actually justified the excise tax, or maybe if they've made any arguments that would be worth sharing.
No, and I think, David, it's actually an awareness thing. It's why I'm, was really excited to talk to you today. It really seems as though this is just something that hasn't been addressed yet, but needs to be addressed. It is, there's some, outside of getting rid of the or aligning policy. I think that it sort of creates a bit of a uneven playing field in a number of ways, from a competition standpoint. And they're really, I don't know, they have a government that would really argue strongly against competition and sort of that free market when the same consumer is walking down the same grocery store aisle, purchasing a Coca-Cola and a Pepsi or a craft juice or water or flavored water, but one small segment of product within that non-alcoholic larger beverage category is being burdened with a tax that really is hard to justify. It just seems like something that it's about time that we make a change to this. It really feels like we've outgrown the whatever original rationale what might have been made for it.
And if we were to convince the fine folks in Ottawa to reevaluate this, what do you think the impact would be, either for you guys as a brewer in the space or the sector in Canada at large? What would the impact of getting rid of the excise tax be?
Well, I mean, look, the excise tax rate is not a massive tax rate. So we're not talking about like a 50 or 60% rate of tax or something, that you see like that. But at its core, I think there's just the principles behind it are really important. Most of the innovation that's coming in this category is coming from small businesses, small breweries like Village Brewery, handcrafted products, who are trying different things and innovating, bringing new choice to the consumer, which is great for business, for the grocery business. I think if the excise tax, were eliminated, the amount of money that would be saved, although not a major component of our cost structure, labor and quality ingredients are still a bigger component. But I think that things like innovation, barrier to entry, having new players come in and add new products, all of that stuff has an effect on either the pricing that consumers pay, because products can be priced lower. I think that there's more competition also drives a true market price for consumers, which is an important thing for us to keep in mind. And then choice, right? It's about innovation and being able to not just be dominated by one or two major industrial manufacturers.
I have to admit, I'm not sure if I've heard the phrase "the true market price" used in that way, but I am going to steal it and I am going to use it frequently. Because I think that is the best way to describe it. It's like, what is the actual price of the beer? Well, let's find out.
Yeah.
Let's find out what it is. And maybe
Yeah.
it's a little lower. Maybe you could have some more competition between brewers. You could have more companies enter the space, more product and consumer choice, which is our bread and butter on this radio show and with this organization. And so With that, Jeff, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show. In the coming months, we can have a toast to this excise tax being repealed.
Wouldn't that be great? I'd be buying.